Hey, have you ever heard the little poem that says, beans, beans, the magical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. The more you toot, the better you feel. So eat your beans at every meal. Have you heard that one before? Sometimes people say it like this: beans, beans, good for your heart. The more you eat, the more you fart. The more you fart, the better you feel. So eat your beans at every meal. Isn't that silly? Yeah, sometimes people talk about eating beans and it causes them to either burp or to toot. And why is that? Did you know when you eat food, of course it goes in your mouth and then it goes down into your stomach, and in your stomach the food begins to digest. And when it does that, it creates something called gas. And this gas, certain foods make more than other foods do. And beans are a food that is famous for giving you gas. And so many people, when they eat beans, they experience more gas in their tummy, and sometimes it makes them burp, and sometimes it makes them toot or poot, or some people say fart. But maybe you shouldn't say that last one because your mommy and daddy might not like you to say that. But there was once a boy, and his name was BB Boy. And BB Boy was a regular kid just like you guys. And his mommy and daddy sometimes would call him 3B. BB Boy. 3B. BB Boy. And his friends would call him BB. And BB was a regular kid like all the rest of us. But BB heard his friends saying that poem. He heard them say, beans, beans, the magical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. The more you toot, the better you feel. So eat your beans at every meal. And BB wondered when he heard them say that poem, he thought, I wonder what they're talking about. But he was a little bit afraid to ask them because he didn't want them to think he was dumb or he didn't know about things. But finally, he was talking to one of his good friends about it, and his friend told him, BB, don't you know that when you eat beans, it gives you a lot of gas in your stomach? And BB said, I've never experienced that. And his friend said, haven't you ever burped before? And BB said, I don't think so. And his friend said, haven't you ever pooted before? And BB said, I don't think so. And his friend said, well, you need to go home and eat a bunch of beans and see what happens. So that night, BB went home to his house and he told his mommy, he said, Mommy, can we have a meal where we eat a bunch of beans? And his mom thought about for a minute and she said, I know, I'm going to make a special 3-bean casserole. Yummy, you will love it. And sure enough, when she made that special bean dish, BB loved it. It tasted delicious. And so he didn't just eat a little bit. He ate a lot, more and more. And his mommy said, BB, be careful how much you eat because you might get your stomach upset by eating too many beans. And BB said, oh, I'll be okay. This is so delicious, Mommy. Thank you. In fact, it was so good and he enjoyed it so much that after the meal, BB told his mommy, can I help clean the dishes also? And his mommy said, sure, that would be wonderful. So everything was going good and it was time for BB to go to bed. And when he got in his bed, he pulled the covers up and he closed his eyes and he started to go to sleep. And while he was sleeping, he had the strangest dream. He dreamed that he was floating like on a pillow of air in a swimming pool. And he felt like he was just floating in the swimming pool, and it was very, very peaceful and calm. and he was bobbing up and down a little bit, and he didn't realize while he was dreaming what was actually happening. But all of a sudden, he heard a noise that woke him up. He heard someone say, "BB, what are you doing?" And all of a sudden, the light came on in his room, and his mommy was standing at the door, and BB opened his eyes, and his face was right against the ceiling of the room. BB, while he was sleeping, had floated up out of his bed in the mid-air and floated all the way up to the ceiling, and his belly was touching on the ceiling, and he was floating in the air. And BB said, "Oh no, what's happening?" And he started waving his arms around and kicking his legs around and spinning around, but he was bouncing off of the ceiling of the room. And BB's belly felt really funny. It was all bloated and kind of fat, like he had a big fat belly, and his belly was full of gas, and he was floating in his room. Well, his mommy came over and grabbed his leg and pulled him back down in the bed. But if she let go of his leg, do you know what happened? He floated back up to the ceiling again. Oh no, this is terrible. So BB's mama called BB's daddy, and he came in there, and he scratched his head, and he thought, this is really a difficult problem. What are we going to do? So his dad went and got some tape out of the craft drawer in the house, and they grabbed BB by the arms, and they grabbed him by the legs, and they pulled him back down in the bed. And then his daddy took some big tape and taped all around his legs and all around his arms so that he would stay taped in the bed. And BB's mommy and daddy said, okay, try to sleep as best you can, and we'll see you in the morning and get all of this sorted out. Well, the next morning when BB woke up, his arms were taped down, his legs were taped down, and he said, "Mommy, Daddy, come get me out of bed." So they came and they took the tape off of him, and he didn't float to the ceiling. And his belly was not all swollen and big like a big fat belly. And so his mommy and his daddy and BB thought, well, I guess everything must be okay. BB doesn't have a big belly that's making him float up to the ceiling anymore. So I guess everything's fine. But his mother said, remember, BB, last night you ate all of that 3-bean casserole, and it might have made so much gas inside of you that the gas expanded and it made you float to the ceiling. So be careful. Don't eat any more beans. So that day when BB went to school, he went to see his friends and he told them about what had happened. And some of his friends believed him and some of his friends did not. And his friend said, BB, when you eat beans, yes, it gives you gas in your stomach and it might make you burp or it might make you poot, but it's not going to make you float up in the air because you have gas inside of you. And BB said, I don't know. I just know what happened to me last night. Well, guess what they were going to have for lunch at the school that day? Beans. Oh no. Well, BB had been playing with his friends and having a good time, and so he forgot all about what had happened the night before. So his friends sat down in the lunchroom at school and they started to eat their lunch, and sure enough, BB said, these beans are delicious. So he ate a bunch of them. In fact, he went back and got seconds. And so after they finished eating, BB and his friends went to their class, and their teacher was teaching a lesson all about airplanes and hot air balloons. The teacher was teaching all about how in the old days they would take a balloon and they would fill up the balloon with hot air, hot gases, and the balloon would float up in the sky. And just as she was teaching that lesson, guess what happened to BB? He started to float up out of his desk, and he floated up to the ceiling, and all of the children were laughing and pointing their fingers and thinking, what is going on? And BB's teacher said, BB, come down from the ceiling. Quit floating around like that. I'm trying to teach a lesson. And BB said, I'm sorry, I can't help it. My belly is all full of gas. I think it's because I ate too many beans. Oh no. And now my big gassy belly is making me float up to the ceiling. So the teacher said, you've got to come down right now. And BB said, I don't know how to come down. What am I going to do? So the teacher said, all right, BB, for most people, when they have a lot of gas in their stomach, you know what they do to get rid of it? They either burp or they poot. And the gas comes out, and then if you do that, you will come back down from the ceiling. And BB said, I'm not sure I can do it. And one of his friends, one of his buddies said, oh, BB, I can burp anytime I want to. I can make myself burp. Can you do that? Can you make yourself burp? Some people can. And so his friend started burping, and all the students in the classroom started laughing. They thought it was hilarious. And so BB tried to burp, and when he did, guess what? He wasn't able to burp, but instead, he pooted. Oh no! And all the students in the class said, pew! That poot smells like rotten beans. But sure enough, BB's belly went down, and he went woo, and came down from the ceiling and landed in his chair. Well, all the students were so excited. They had never seen anything like that. And they all decided, we all want to eat as many beans as we can and see if we can float up in the air like BB. But as far as we know, up until that point, BB was the only one who could ever get so much gas in his belly from beans so that he could float in the air. And all of the students at the school were talking about it, and the teachers were talking about it, and everybody started calling BB the human gas balloon, because he would eat beans and float up in the air, and everyone was so excited, and they were asking him questions. How do you do that? And BB said, I don't know, I just eat a lot of beans. But because BB had this special superpower, eating beans, and then his belly blowing up big, and he would float up in the air, can you imagine what kind of adventures he could have after that by just eating beans and then beginning to fly? What in the world might happen to BB now that he's discovered this new thing? And even though most of us, when we eat too many beans and get too much gas, we either burp or we toot to get rid of the gas, BB was a special kind of kid who had a very different situation from the rest of us. So what do you think BB will do now with his new superpower? Well, wait till next time to find out the rest of the story about what happens to BB, the human gas balloon.